like they are selling way better than I think any of us suspected at this point, JP. I'll get the most latest figures up.
I
Where
can
are we
bring
now?
it up on here
37
for us
1,000,
now as
something like
well.
that.
We are currently at the minute, and everyone should hopefully be
There it
able
is.
to see that. Yeah, 36,057 is where we're
Wow.
at on there. You can obviously see on the chat as well that there is the wonderful map on there. There is still some floor seats. I'm not surprised. They're bloody expensive. Set up at the moment currently for 48,000 with a big fuck off stage taking up like a whole massive section of it at the moment, but we're kind of used to that with AEW shows. Hey, but yeah, so there is 36,057 at this point. So it is saying that's up 3,000 from the last kind of update that we had seen previously. Oh, just over 2,000 actually, I should say, on that. Still very good numbers. Still outpacing what we thought as well. There is still that push. It's been proven to be justifiably a good decision on this. There would have been people, and as negative as I might seem about how the company does at points in times and how it produces its TV, you can't really argue with this decision of 9 months. They're giving themselves a lot of time to sell there's still obviously a lot of tickets available. The capacity is like, they're aiming to beat that 81,000 tickets sold. And I'm not getting into that and that bloke from Brent Borough Council and the rest of it, because that just feels like a fucking, like a weird rabbit hole to go down. I hope he does. I bet he's just thinking, you know what it is? We spoke about GTA 6 in the chat. It's a bit like GTA San Andreas, isn't it? With your man CJ going, oh shit, here we go again. Because he's going to be getting a lot of emails from wrestling fans as well. But yeah, that's, in terms of money in the bank, I think in terms of the gate, it's close up to around 4 million, which, if I remember rightly, the cost they had for hiring out the venue was $500,000. I wonder whether or not they had some kind of, like, if there was any kind of nice deal that happened for the fact that they moved, did some stuff with the staging because of the Taylor Swift concert as well. So Wembley's going to be bloody raking it in around that point in time, isn't it? Oh, like I say, if you can get those Swifties along to that, that's where the real money is at this stage.
It's like we were talking on the weekend show, JP, when it was 10,000 less, because obviously the pre-sale was last Monday and then the general sale happened on Friday. I was already impressed at that number. Like, genuinely, there was a point last year. If it stopped at this, if it stopped at near 37,000, I would have been like, oh, you know what? They haven't quite filled Wembley, but pretty good for a secondary, not WWE country coming to the country for the first time. Maybe they shouldn't have run Wembley, but it was still strong. They're at that number already. It makes no. It's like we were saying on the weekend show. Like, one, who are these people? And I think the answer is they're not people in our bubble. It's people who, I would guess, just went to Wembley last year and had a fucking great day out. And they don't spend their week to week like we do, JP, analysing the ins and outs of the AEW book. And I'm like, oh, I had a good day at Wembley. I love it. Wembley itself, in a lot of ways, is the draw, isn't it, for a lot of people? And I think I would suspect it's those types of people. Connor said in the chat before, do any of us know who these people are? Like, no, I don't know anyone really who's bought. I've seen one or two comments from our patrons who bought tickets. Like, I think Dom was saying he bought like a cheap seat, and I've heard stories like that. But like, it's this completely separate group, isn't it, of people who are outside of our silly little online echo chamber and absolutely exist. The types of people who get their wrestling news from elsewhere and follow AEW potentially, on ITV as Matty would say, God intended. Back there, still living in those physical days. I'm sure they're all devastated about the loss of Silvervision. I'm sure they've all got living rooms like your background there on the video version. Chris is saying in the chat here, and Steph say the same. Could it potentially be touts? I suppose there's going to be maybe a amount of that who's looking at it and going, we could make it, but that's true of any big event, isn't it? I think Meltzer's always big on that. But like, there's always big amounts of touts, no matter what the show is. I guess we'll see if there's an extremely cheap secondary market, whether they all end up taking a bath on it, if that ends up being true. But there's not really any evidence of that either. I think it's just, like I say, our low expectations. Maybe we're off the mark a little bit. Is probably what I'd say.
I think there is, like we've sort of said before, looking at it with like that sort of bit more distance, I don't think it's touts, number one, just simply because there isn't that many that's appeared on the resale market as far as I'm aware. But the tickets themselves, they have gone up in price, so it means you're going to have more disparate. There's going to be a lot more like floor seats, and I think if the touts were buying floor seats at those prices, they'd be taking a hit. That would be like they'd be absolutely suffering at this point, and I think they realise themselves, because you like to think that ticket touts are quite smart about this type of stuff, that they would have realised that this isn't like the NFL or something like that, where tickets go pretty much immediately and it feels like it's an ultra hot event, or Taylor Swift tickets, where they'll be all over it for that kind of stuff for the resale market. I don't think that is the case here. In terms of who that fans are, I always think of them as like it is the people who sort of followed wrestling with TNA on Challenge and stuff like that. Like I think, to say like the Wrestle Talk kind of fans, the people who kind of like I always think that's how they found about wrestling. And like you say, those people who watch.
Let me tell you about YouTube. There's some horrendous YouTube channels out there. Not that ours is the best in the world, with hundreds of thousands of viewers who are just, there are people out there who like that's how they get their news, from Sean's Views or whatever. The YouTube channel of choices, like they're a silent majority, mate. Not everyone has got the refined taste of people like us listening to Post Wrestling, The Observer, and Voices and stuff like that.
I mean, I think what they've done with this, primarily, the thing you have to say that it is like a kind of a success is straight away they've made their money back. There is that, so they're not taking a bath on it. They've also got, like you say, 9 months to kind of think on this, like they should do their baby, and they've just found out they're pregnant with a decent kind of WrestleMania show. And they said the thing they need to do is have their shit together for when that baby comes out. Something I can't always say that I've had, but there we go. It's like one of those kind of situations where they've got this period of time to kind of get their ducks in a row, sell consistent amounts of tickets, because it is going to start kind of petering off now at this stage. And that early rush, if they can get it up to 40 before like the going into 2024, you go, okay, that's sort of like a good point. And then at that point, it's almost like it's like lap of the gods. I still this is the only time they're coming over, and I imagine that's part of the appeal. Although I wonder if that will change, and I can see us talking about this on Ask Grapple, whether or not they'll actually come over before that, just in order to give things a bit of a boost. And I still wonder, they're going to have to produce like a good product and try and make themselves hot, because the situation in the States is it feels like Wembley and everything else, it's almost like it's a different company when it comes to tickets and all of the stuff that they're kind of doing, because it's pretty desperate over there for ticket sales. We're quite used to seeing like poorly attended shows, and you see various photos coming out of like one side of the building where there's a cameraman and a couple of other lads just sort of sat there, empty rows of seats and everything else. And I think this feels like a good news story for them to kind of like, it's the one thing that they're able to kind of latch onto, is they're doing this absolutely mammoth show. And this is really, something already where they go, okay, this is our most successful show. And it's nice to see them trying at least to sort of like really capitalize on it, because my God, they're plugging it all the fucking time. And I think part of the plan is to try and see if they can get a few Americans and Canadians to make a trip over to London to go and see it. Of like, this is their big AEW show. So for that hardcore base to sort of go, what, we're not going to Chicago? Oh, you're going to go to London. It's going to be a lot more different.
Well, like us, they've started early. We've started on the Wembley ticket analysis early. I imagine, again, it's going to quieten down soon. We've talked about it in the last 3 shows, because these numbers are genuinely, I think, quite shocking and newsworthy where they are. It's going to get quiet for a while, and it's going to be what they do in those quiet months that's going to be important. If anything, they've promoted it right now to the extent that like it's probably hitting other shows because it's getting so much focus. They're opening Collision and Dynamite with shouty reminders about All In, or you got Kevin Kelly, or was Tony Schiavone this week on Collision, and getting the they've been very good with the .co.uk. It was .co.uk. I was like, come on, mate, get Tony in there, he'll tell you. Apparently apparently World's End is literally named after the pub in Camden, he said today. So we know he's got his ears to the crown when it comes. Yeah, apparently he walked past on the way back from a Fulham game and thought that's a good name for a pay-per-view. That's literally what he said.
What Fulham game was he at? Were you fucking walking through Camden?
was going to say, what's he doing there? Business meeting in the World's End that maybe gone to Progress. Who knows? But apparently that's genuinely the case. But he does, for his faults, and we spend a lot of time picking them apart. He understands this market, I think. He understands the importance of Wembley. He's just not very good at getting that across to the Americans. So that's where I doubt whether people would come over, because I still think Americans think of this as a big Saudi show. And I think, the card, as good a time as we had, maybe went to that, this year, ending with a comedy match in Cole and MJF, and they're not really been much memorable from an in-ring point of view if you were sat at home watching on pay-per-view. But that can easily be put right as well. They put the money where their mouth is when it comes to promoting the thing, when it comes to, getting there early, getting the tickets on sale before Christmas. I think they answered a lot of our criticisms from last year. That's the other criticism we had. It's the card, and it's the making it your WrestleMania to justify selling that many tickets, and to sell, those remaining tickets. That's going to be the thing. But yeah, I wouldn't put it past them at this point to come close to last year's numbers. Steph laughing there. Yeah, apparently Tony was in Camden. Who knows? But as you said, Davey, Carl says here, can't wait for AEW Camden Underworld pay per view. That might be the name of the show there. Nice one, Carl. Any other hot spots in it?
Pay per view just called Market or like Coco. Jazz
Wendy's
Cafe.
That's on the corner. Camden Junction. I don't know. Don't know Camden that well.